Hello, I'm Adam Nigro, commercial advertising photographer coming at you from Toronto, Canada. And today I'm going to show you how I made this image here. Let's go. So I was contacted by an agency in Toronto whose client needed some key visuals for a new print campaign they were doing to launch their new sangria flavored beer. The agency thought I would be a great fit for this project based on two very specific images in my portfolio. This one here and this one here. And when you see the brief, it'll all make sense. Boom, there it is. So basically a rough sketch of the composition they were after. Now, in this particular case, they had an in-house photographer at the agency who was responsible for taking all the photos of these still assets, and then they were gonna send it over to me to retouch, clean up, as well as do all the composite work of the image. So before any production took place, we had a call with their entire creative team about the best way to pull this off. And I suggested that their photographers shoot any floating elements kind of elevated off the ground, maybe sitting on like a glass or something. And that would avoid any color cast from the backgrounds that they're shooting with, as well as any kind of hard shadows underneath the fruits and ingredients. I mean, if these things are floating in the air or balancing, you're not gonna have a shadow underneath. So just to maintain the illusion, right? Another thing I suggested was do not move the light or the camera at all during any of the shoots, and that just helps kind of glue everything together when you're doing composite work. So they send me about 80 or 90 still images, and now it's time to open up Photoshop, where I will block out the external world for the next week. Oh, and did I mention I have to create 8 images in under a week? Yeah, that's right. Buckle up for this one. So I load in all the images and do a rough cutout of each element so I can shrink down my file weight a bit. They actually send me all their print labels of all their cans, and they had the exact Pantone colors on there. And that comes in really handy when you're trying to match the color exactly to what their specifications are. It's especially essential when you don't have the product on hand, which I didn't in this case. And I actually had to figure out how to convert the Pantone into a hex value so that Photoshop could understand it. And it took me a little while to find a calculator to do that. Some super fun close cutting with the pen tool. Here, I'm trying to preserve the original shadows so it looks more real. So you can see here that they gave me 2 versions of the can, one with condensation and one without. And I guess the goal was to be able to stack these images on top of each other and be able to dial back the condensation at a later point if they felt it was too much. But it's at this point where I discovered that the cans were shot slightly off axis, which pretty much throws that entire idea out the window. So I decided to just commit to the condensation can, and you'll see later why that was a big mistake on my part. So now I create selections of each element of the can, and this is so I can have independent control and manipulate each specific piece to my liking. Now I'm doing some color matching to the dry can, which I thought was a truer representation of what the colors actually looked like. For some reason, the condensation really affected the contrast and color of the can. So here I am pulling some reference images of the fruit. Basically stuff that I think looks good in a commercial setting, and I try to match mine as best as I can to theirs. And this is a little trick I picked up back in my audio engineering days as a mixing engineer. Any good mixing engineer will tell you you always have to use a reference track, which is basically a song that already exists that sounds good and sounds kind of similar to what you're trying to do. And you basically just match it as best as you can. There's no shame in taking inspiration from great work that's already out there. So you can do the same thing with your photos. So you can see here I am switching to grayscale every now and then, and this is so I can better see any changes in tonal variation, so I can even out the dark and light spots and make it look a bit more uniform. I used a bit of liquefy to give this leaf a little bit more of an interesting shape. Finally, we arrive at this V1, which is ready to send off to the client for revisions. And as always, this is where the anxiety sets in. And you sit there and you wait for their feedback, and you basically stew in your own self-doubt and crippling depression. So here we are with the client revisions. And I wish I could say that these were quick fixes. Let me read you the first one. Are you able to take down the condensation by about 50%? Yeah, so this is where I had to explain to them that the cans were shot off axis and therefore blending the two would be a nightmare. And I actually spent a good deal of time trying to recreate the condensation by using smart objects, and they found there was still too much condensation on there. So you know what? We decided to just scrap that and go with the dry can, which actually ended up working out for us because their client prefers their can without condensation. They think that the water droplets alter the look of their can too much. So phew, it actually worked out for us. The bad news is that now I have to do all that retouching all over again. So another challenge was the dry can and the wet can were not the same. One of them had the French label, the other one had the English label. And that's a thing here in Canada. So the client wanted the English label, but it was only shot on the wet can. So I had to go into their print label that they sent me and copy and paste the text and paste it onto the can and wrap it around the can in a believable way. And this could have been avoided during the shooting process, but you know, these things happen, and that's my job is to make this stuff work. So here's the final pick. Pretty sweet. I repeated the process for the remaining flavors and created a couple images for social media. And I'm pretty happy with the way these turned out. I mean, look at that improvement on this watermelon slice. Damn satisfying to see that before and after. So that's it, folks. Thank you so much for coming along on this journey with me. I really hope you learned something. I hope that you were able to extract but a small bit of knowledge from this whole thing, even if it's just to pick up a pair of these dope shades and protect your eyes. Leave me a like, leave me a comment, and subscribe. In the comments, let me know any retouching tips you might have to improve my process. I'm always looking to learn. Let me know any client stories you might have, or just to say hi. Would love to hear from you. And until next time, happy frickin' photography. Peace.